Welcome to this slideshow, which supports the Yorkshire Therapies and Training course on making your practice autism friendly. This is the first of two slideshows. Autism is a lifelong developmental disability that affects how a person communicates with others. It exists on a spectrum, which means that some people are more affected than others, but anyone on the autistic spectrum is likely to experience loneliness and isolation. As more than 1 in 100 people are thought to have some form of autism, it's very likely that some of your clients are affected. Early studies of autism suggested that it was characterised by a triad of impairments. In other words, there were 3 areas where those on the spectrum were likely to be affected. These were communication, social interaction, and imagination. Although you'll still see references to the triad, later researchers added a 4th area, which is limited planning ability. One of the things that means is that each person on the spectrum has their own version of autism, where some of these areas are affected more severely than others. So let's have a look at each of them in turn. People with autistic spectrum disorders can be affected in both verbal and non-verbal language. There are a lot of ways that this can cause problems. Some people with autistic spectrum disorder may not speak at all. Others may speak idiosyncratically, with little or no expression. They may not recognise or use non-verbal communication such as body language or facial expression. And they may use and understand language very literally, so that jokes, slang and metaphors are confusing for them. Finally, they may not be able to follow hints, incomplete or implied requests, or very complex instructions which include a series of separate actions. The problems with communication can lead to complications when autistic people find themselves in social situations. Autism is an invisible disability. You can't spot it just by looking at someone, so they may come across as rude or just a bit odd, and many of those that the autistic person comes into contact with don't realise that they simply need support. People on the autistic spectrum can be hypersensitive to sensory input, such as touch, noise, smell, even nice ones, and busy visuals such as being surrounded by other people, bright lights or vivid colours. Coping with this type of input can create high levels of stress and anxiety, which of course makes the other problems worse. Imagination is not something that we use only for storytelling and fantasy. It's part of the way that we communicate with one another. Imagination helps us to predict what others will do, say or feel, and we can change our own words and actions to get the results that we want. People with ASD often struggle to do this. It can be hard for them to understand someone else's point of view, or even to see that others might feel differently to the way they do about something. It also makes it difficult to deal with changes of routine, since this involves imagining being able to do something in a different way from usual. The 4th impairment, added sometime after the original 3, concerns planning ability. There are a number of reasons why autistic people might have trouble with this. It's difficult to organise or imagine the steps needed to design a plan. It's difficult to cope with changes along the way if the plan doesn't work as expected. It's difficult to imagine the goal at the end of the plan when things are different to how they are now. This one can be a problem, particularly for goal-directed therapists. It's difficult to give long-term or sustained attention to the plan. And it's difficult to communicate with others if support is needed. Thank you for listening. Now, please return to the course notes and read on. And don't forget to complete the exercises in the workbook on the material you've covered so far. If you don't have a workbook, you can sign up for the course at www.cpd.expert. Thank you.